The last thing my husband whispered before he tried to murder me was, "Enjoy the swim with the sharks." Then his hands slammed into my back, and I fell off the yacht into the freezing Atlantic Ocean. As I fought to stay alive, I watched my husband and his mother sail away, laughing while I drowned. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't make sure I was dead. And by the time they realized I survived, I had already uncovered a criminal empire, multiple murders, and secrets so dark they would destroy their family forever. My name is Lindsay, and this is the story of how I sent my husband and his mother to prison for life. The ocean swallowed me whole. Freezing salt water rushed into my mouth and nose as I sank beneath the waves. My lungs burned while panic exploded through my chest. I kicked desperately toward the surface, finally breaking through just in time to gasp for air. The yacht was already speeding away. Its engines roared louder with every second as the distance between us grew. I could still see them standing on the deck. My husband, Bradley, and his mother, Eleanor, watching me drown. Eleanor's laugh echoed across the water like this was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. My name is Lindsay. I'm 32 years old, and at that moment, floating alone in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, I realized my husband had just tried to kill me. The water was brutally cold. My soaked clothes dragged me down like weights tied around my body. Every movement felt impossible. Every breath burned. This was supposed to be our anniversary vacation. 3 years of marriage. Bradley had insisted we celebrate on a luxury yacht off the Florida coast. He'd also insisted his mother come with us because she'd been lonely since his father died. I never wanted Eleanor there. But I agreed because I thought it mattered to Bradley. I thought a lot of things about Bradley that turned out to be lies. The yacht became smaller and smaller, until it was just a white blur on the horizon. They weren't coming back. That much was obvious. My arms shook from exhaustion as I struggled to stay afloat. Somewhere behind me was the Florida coastline, but I couldn't see it. There was nothing around me except endless dark water. Fear crawled up my throat. For the first time in years, I truly believed I might die. But another part of me refused to accept it. I'm not weak. I built one of the largest biotech companies in the country from nothing. I fought through hostile takeovers, patent wars, corrupt investors, and boardrooms filled with men who thought a woman couldn't run a billion-dollar pharmaceutical empire. I survived all of that. I wasn't going to die because of Bradley. We met 5 years earlier at a medical conference in Seattle. He was charming, intelligent, funny. He worked as a healthcare consultant and knew exactly what to say when the pressure of running my company became overwhelming. Unlike the opportunists who usually surrounded wealthy women, Bradley seemed genuine. At least that's what I believed. His mother never hid her hatred for me. From the first day we met, Eleanor treated me like trash. She came from old money and believed wealth should be inherited, not earned. The fact that I built my fortune myself offended her. She constantly called me new money, like it was an insult. She told Bradley he was marrying beneath his social class. But he married me anyway. And I thought that meant he loved me. Another wave crashed over my head. Salt water filled my mouth again. My legs were cramping now. My body was shutting down. Then I saw it. A fishing boat. Far away, maybe half a mile from me. Hope hit me so hard it almost hurt. I started swimming. Every stroke felt like torture, but I forced myself forward. Closer. Closer. Finally, relief nearly made me collapse. By the time the fishing boat reached me, I barely had the strength to keep my head above water. Strong hands pulled me aboard while I shook uncontrollably from cold and exhaustion. And as I collapsed onto the deck wrapped in blankets, I made myself a promise. Bradley and Eleanor thought they had won. They thought I was dead. They thought they were about to inherit everything I built. But I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to destroy them. The men who rescued me were a father and son from Miami on an overnight fishing trip. They gave me blankets, hot coffee, and asked if I needed a hospital. I told them no. What I needed was privacy. The father, Thomas, studied me carefully while his son steered the boat toward shore. "You running from something?" he asked quietly. I looked at him. "No," I said. "I'm running toward revenge." He nodded slowly like he understood exactly what I meant. Using his son's phone, I made 3 calls. The first was to Patricia, my head of security and former FBI agent. The second was to Gregory, my attorney. The third was to Diana, my best friend and business partner. I told them everything. I told them Bradley had pushed me into the ocean. I told them Eleanor helped him. And I told them to prepare for war. By the time we reached a private dock Diana owned, she was already waiting for me with dry clothes, a burner phone, and a black SUV with tinted windows. The second she saw me, she burst into tears and hugged me tightly. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. "What?" "Bradley called the Coast Guard hours ago. Said you accidentally fell overboard while taking pictures." "Ist her?" "He called the Coast Guard?" "He sounded devastated," Diana said bitterly. Crying, panicking like the perfect grieving husband. I felt something cold settle inside me. Bradley was moving fast. That meant he planned everything carefully. Under our prenup, Bradley wouldn't automatically inherit my fortune. But if I died unexpectedly, my company shares would enter probate, giving him temporary influence over my estate. Enough influence to steal billions before anyone noticed. But Bradley didn't know something important. 6 months earlier, I quietly changed my estate documents after growing suspicious of his sudden interest in my finances. If I died, everything would immediately transfer into an irrevocable trust controlled by Patricia and Gregory. Bradley wouldn't receive a single dollar without investigation. I never told him because I still hoped I was imagining things. I wasn't. I just underestimated how evil he really was. Diana took me to one of her secure properties outside Miami. Inside, Patricia and Gregory were already waiting. They had started gathering evidence immediately. The yacht's GPS data showed the exact location where Bradley pushed me overboard. Even better, Bradley had disabled the yacht's cameras before the trip. Huge mistake. That alone proved premeditation. Then Patricia uncovered something even worse. Bradley had been stealing from me for over a year. At first, it was small amounts hidden through shell corporations and offshore accounts. Then the thefts escalated. $15 million gone. Hidden in accounts connected directly to Eleanor. "This wasn't spontaneous," Gregory said grimly. "They've been planning this for a long time." Patricia slid financial records across the table. "They intended to take everything after your death," she explained. "Your company. Your holdings. Your personal accounts. Billions." I stared at the paperwork in disbelief. Bradley hadn't married me because he loved me. He married me because I was a target. And Eleanor had probably orchestrated everything from the beginning. The betrayal hit harder than the ocean ever had. I wanted them to feel exactly what I felt in that water. "I'm going home," I said quietly. Patricia looked up. "You sure? I want to see Bradley's face when he realizes I'm alive." My house in Coral Gables sat on 3 acres overlooking the bay. Modern glass walls. Steel architecture. Every inch designed by me. Bradley loved showing it off. He loved the lifestyle my success gave him. He just never respected the work behind it. We arrived after dark. The house glowed with lights. Inside, Bradley and Eleanor were celebrating. Probably toasting to my death. Patricia parked near the guest house. "We can handle this legally," she warned. "Cleaner that way." "Nothing about this is going to be clean," I replied. Earlier that day, Gregory had frozen every account connected to Bradley and Eleanor. The FBI already had criminal complaints waiting. Diana locked Bradley out of every company system and informed the board of directors. By morning, his life would collapse. But tonight? Tonight was personal. I walked through my front door silently. The alarm system was disabled. Careless. Their voices drifted from the living room. Bradley and Eleanor sat drinking $20,000 wine from my private collection. "To Lindsay," Bradley toasted with a grin. "May she rest in peace." Eleanor laughed. "I still can't believe you actually did it," she said. "I thought you'd lose your nerve." "It was easier than I expected," Bradley replied casually. "She trusted me completely." He actually laughed. "She thought I loved her." "Women like her always do," Eleanor sneered. "Successful women are desperate for male validation." "And now everything belongs to us," Bradley said. I stepped into the room. "Interesting plan," I said calmly. "Just one problem." They froze. Bradley dropped his wine glass. It shattered. You were supposed to be dead. I know, I said. You tried very hard to make that happen. Eleanor recovered first. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You fell overboard accidentally. Save it, I interrupted. Then I laid everything out. The offshore accounts, the stolen money, the GPS data, the disabled cameras, the conspiracy, and finally, the recording I'd just made of their conversation admitting everything. Bradley collapsed into a chair. Eleanor's mask cracked completely. You can't prove this in court, she hissed. I smiled. Actually, I can. Then I signaled Patricia. Seconds later, FBI agents stormed my house. Bradley and Eleanor were arrested that night. And for the first time since the ocean swallowed me, I finally breathed again. The media frenzy exploded the next morning. Every news channel covered the story. Billionaire biotech CEO survives attempted murder by husband. Reporters camped outside my house. My company stock dropped briefly, then skyrocketed when investors realized I was alive and still in control. The board fully backed me. Meanwhile, Eleanor launched a media campaign painting herself as the victim. She claimed I was unstable, manipulative, paranoid, and disturbingly, some people believed her. Anonymous threats started arriving at my house. People accused me of lying. Others said Bradley should have finished the job. Patricia increased security immediately. But Eleanor wasn't done. Then Patricia uncovered the truth about her past. And everything changed. Eleanor's late husband hadn't died naturally. Medical records showed he was healthy before suddenly dying of a heart attack. The doctor who signed the death certificate later lost his medical license for falsifying documents. Even worse, 3 months before his death, Eleanor's husband created a new will that would have limited her, and the lawyer who drafted it conveniently died in a car accident 2 weeks later. Then there was Catherine, Bradley's sister. She disappeared 10 years earlier after accusing Eleanor of murder and financial fraud. Police assumed she ran away. But Patricia discovered there had been no activity from Catherine ever again. No taxes. No credit cards. Nothing. Dead. Patricia was certain of it. Then we uncovered the rest. Eleanor wasn't just a manipulative socialite. She was the head of a massive criminal network. Fraud. Money laundering. Blackmail. Embezzlement. Hundreds of millions stolen over decades. And she had powerful people protecting her. Judges. Politicians. Business executives. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was organized crime. And to destroy Eleanor completely, we needed one thing. Bradley. We offered him a deal. Testify against Eleanor. Reveal everything. Help expose the murders and financial crimes. In exchange, his sentence would be reduced. He agreed. But he wanted to speak to me first. When they brought Bradley into Gregory's office wearing handcuffs and a prison jumpsuit, he looked broken. Good. The moment he sat down, he started crying. I'm sorry, he whispered. I stared at him coldly. You pushed me into shark-infested water. He shook violently. My mother controlled me my whole life, he said. She planned everything. The marriage. The theft. Your murder. I felt disgust, not sympathy. You're only sorry because you got caught. Then Bradley revealed the truth. Eleanor murdered his father. And Catherine. He had proof. Recordings. Documents. Financial files. Everything. He'd secretly collected evidence for years in case. I felt absolutely nothing. Give us the evidence, I said finally. And if you're lying, I'll make sure you never leave prison. Bradley nodded. And just like that, Eleanor's empire began collapsing. 2 weeks later, the FBI arrested Eleanor at a charity gala in front of Miami's elite. The photos went viral instantly. She looked furious, humiliated, terrified. Then the investigation exploded nationwide. Catherine's remains were discovered buried on Eleanor's property in the Everglades. Forensics confirmed murder. Eleanor poisoned her husband slowly over 6 months using toxins that mimicked heart disease. The doctor confessed. Financial crimes linked back to dozens of shell corporations. Everything Bradley promised turned out to be true. The trial started 6 months later. and it became the biggest criminal case in Florida that year. The courtroom was packed every day. Journalists, victims, curious spectators. Eleanor sat perfectly dressed in designer clothing pretending to be innocent. The prosecution exposed everything. The murders, the fraud, the blackmail, the theft. Witness after witness described Eleanor destroying lives without remorse. Then Bradley testified. He admitted everything. How Eleanor controlled him since childhood. How she ordered him to marry me. How she planned my murder for over a year. How she laughed while I drowned. The courtroom went silent. Even the jury looked horrified. Then it was my turn. I described falling into the ocean. Watching the yacht leave. Realizing my husband wanted me dead. What did you think in that moment? The prosecutor asked softly. That I had trusted the wrong person, I answered. And if I survived, I would make sure they paid. Eleanor never testified. Too dangerous. The 23 felony convictions. As the verdicts were read, Eleanor completely lost control. She lunged toward me screaming, "You should have died in that ocean." The guards restrained her while cameras captured everything. Any sympathy she had left disappeared instantly. At sentencing, the judge gave Eleanor 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. "You will die in prison," the judge said coldly. "And that is more mercy than you ever showed your victims." For the first time in years, Eleanor looked afraid. Bradley received 15 years under his plea agreement. I watched him leave the courtroom and felt absolutely nothing. The civil lawsuits came next. Every asset Eleanor owned was seized. Her mansions, jewelry, art, cars, everything sold to compensate victims. My company recovered stronger than ever. Investors called me unstoppable. Honestly, after surviving attempted murder and destroying a criminal empire, business negotiations felt easy. A year later, I stood on the deck of a brand new yacht with Diana, Patricia, and Gregory. We were celebrating another major business acquisition. "To Lindsay," Diana said, raising her champagne glass. "The woman who survived everything." We toasted while the sun disappeared over the ocean. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because Eleanor and Bradley were suffering, but because they failed. They tried to destroy me. And they lost. My phone buzzed suddenly. A message from Bradley. "I'm sorry for everything. I did love you once. I hope you find happiness." I deleted it immediately. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. I put my phone away and looked back at the water. The same ocean that almost became my grave. And instead of fear, I felt pride. I survived. I fought back. And I won. That's the kind of revenge that truly lasts.